Okay, we start. Welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining the session today, especially after the siesta time, having your lunch. I hope everybody is awake, and if not, please help yourself with your coffees. Yeah. We move forward with the webinar today. We have timed it for exactly 60 minutes. We will try to, I know we are starting 5 minutes late. However, we will try to live up to the time that we have promised you. And let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Anand Vimal. I'm based out of Bangalore. I work for Cloud Kinetics and I manage the SARC and India business, especially aligned with digital transformation in cloud with AWS. And also, I head the sales and pre sales. I have my colleague here from Cloud Kinetics, Mayank Pandey, who is one of our solution architect. I have my colleagues and counterparts from AWS as well, Annappa Patil, who is senior BDM Edge and Elemental Business. Uh, we have Praveen as well, who is Senior Solution Architect, Praveen Hosur. Uh, and we have other members to support us from our marketing team, Sanjana and Shraddha in the background. And they will be helping us with the required support system here to run this program successfully. Moving on, I would take another 3-4 minutes time just to give you all a quick introduction about who is Cloud Kinetics, what we do, and and what we are here for. And then I will keep on, sharing the platform with my colleagues and counterparts here to help you with the outcome that we are expecting. Cloud Kinetics, as the name suggests, we are of course in cloud business and we kinetize the scale and business and digital transformation through cloud, AWS. We started in 2012, headquartered in Singapore, and we are now operating in 9 different countries across multiple time zones. And India happens to be, and SARC happens to be one of our strategic locations today. And as we exit 24, we enter 25. I know all of you are planning to achieve your numbers, targets, and do the annual operating plan for next year, but it also is very important to get aligned to the thoughts and the planning what we want to do for next year. And that is where Cloud Kinetics comes into play, where we help you plan not only your IT budgets, where we not only plan you to define your geographies and territories, we also help you align with the right business value and the proof of value, and hence the digital cloud transformation word. It comprises of multiple modules and the elemental offering that we have for the entire market here, which goes around with migration and modernization, which is our day-to-day practice, bread and butter, I would say, powered by application development and application modernization. We also work around with data analytics as a practice, and then of course the security, the most important aspect of it. We will cover certain points and highlights regarding that as well in today's session with respect to the subject that we have. And then we also do work around with financial engineering through FinOps practices. So that's what Cloud Kinetics is in short. In India, we are in every country where we operate, we are headquartered, and to follow the local uh, law of land, we are registered in India as well as the India entity, which is named as Cloud Kinetics Technology Solutions Private Limited, which is headquartered in Chennai. That happens to be our global delivery center as well. And also to let everybody know, we are a managed services partner with AWS MSP, what we call in short, and a migration competent partner to carry out those large migrations. So that's what Cloud Kinetics is in short, and we would be, of course, trailing our discussions forward from here, picking up the threads, and we will have a lot of one-on-one bilateral conversations after this session. But for now, keeping the essence of time and the context, I would pass on the platform to Praveen from AWS, and he would take up the session forward to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. Thanks for setting the context. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes. Yep. All good.
Perfect. And thanks. Hi, team. It is nice to connect with you all virtually this way, right? As Anand mentioned, I'm Praveen Hosur Narayana Gupta. I'm a senior solutions architect here at AWS. Right. So in today's session, we'll be talking about how you can leverage AWS Edge services. When I say AWS Edge services, we are talking about AWS CloudFront. We are talking about WAF and Shield to improve the customer performance, that is the end user experience, and how we ensure security is taken care at the edge layer itself, and also reduce the cost as well, right? Which is a need of the hour as well, right? So we'll be talking more in terms of CloudFront, WAF, and Shield in today's session. Yeah, so CloudFront has been there for close to 15 years now. If you closely look at it, here has been when we started in 2008, we started supporting S3 as an origin, and where people who wanted to store their content on S3 wanted this content to be cached closer to the end user. That's where CloudFront was born out there, right? Over a period of 15 years, if you look at it, there's been multiple enhancements which has been happened, right? These can be new features which has been built out there, or new services itself altogether out there, right? So what I'm trying to say here is this particular space is where we have been constantly innovating out there, and we are trying to understand what are the customer requirements, and then accordingly build new features, which is helping the customers to move the needles out there, right? Yeah. First things first, when we talk about CloudFront, for those of you who are not aware, CloudFront is our content delivery network. That means this is a service which will help you to cache certain content. When you're talking about static content, that is largely around images, videos, some of your website content as well, because they're largely JavaScript, CSS, and all of these content, which will help you to cache the content closer to the end user. And whenever the user is requesting for it, it ensures it accelerates this content, right? So that is for the static content. And we'll also talk about dynamic content out there, right? So for those of you not aware, CDN is a content delivery network, right? So first things first, let's quickly understand what is CloudFront and how does the CloudFront architecture work, right? So let's get to an example here. Let's assume that you are an end user out there, and then you have your content, that is websites. It can be multiple use cases around it, right? So you have your content which is hosted on AWS or even on a customer data center out there, right? So let's assume that you have certain content which is front-ended by application load balancer, and then there are a set of EC2 instances which has been running your application logic. And then we also have certain static content which is hosted on S3 out there, right? So whenever a user tries to request this particular content out there, whenever you're leveraging CDN out there, what CDN, that is the CloudFront out there, it ensures that it always resolves to the closest POP possible out there, all right? POP stands for points of presence. Let's assume I'm based out of Bangalore. When I'm trying to access a content which is based out of Mumbai, so what our DNS does is it ensures it always resolves to the closest POP possible, right? Closest POP for me is Bangalore itself. So the request automatically lands onto this edge POP out there. And this is a location, if the content is already cached, it is directly served to the end user from here itself, right? So this way we are able to reduce the latency completely out there, rather than this request going all the way to the Mumbai to fetch this content out there, right? And one more key thing to notice here is we do have our security solutions, that is AWS WAF as well as AWS Shield. WAF is for layer 7 protection, and AWS Shield is a managed DDoS protection service out there. Both of them are residing in the same POP location itself. That means as the traffic comes in, we start inspecting this traffic. If there is any malicious traffic out there, we drop that malicious traffic, and only the genuine traffic will go back to your origins out there. So this way, we'll be able to not only provide better performance, we'll be also able to provide the necessary security out there, right? This will help you to protect it. It will help you to protect against any kind of layer 7 vulnerabilities or any kind of DDoS events which are usually going through out there, right? So that's a typical architecture out there. And if you're dealing with dynamic content, that is largely around API acceleration, which cannot be cached, that is where the request comes to this particular POP. And from here, it uses the AWS backbone network to go back to your origin, which is much more efficient and faster, right? We'll talk about it in a future slides out there. Just to summarize, our architecture is based on super POP model here. That means these are the POP locations where we usually cache our content. And then we also have a secondary tier of caching that is called regional edge cache out there, which has a larger cache width. That means whenever a request comes in, if the content is not present here, the chances of content being present here is much more higher. That way, if the content is not present, it will come to here, it fetches that content and eventually goes back to the end user out there, right? So this way, we provide tiered caching out there so that we can cater to the wide variety of use cases out there, team, right? So that's about the architecture. Quickly moving on, how are we able to do this? We spoke about static content, we spoke about dynamic content, right? So we are being able to do this largely due to our global edge network out there. So when you look at this graph here, these are the POPs, right? That is the points of presence. Along with it, the regional edge caches out there, right? So all of these are interconnected with a 400 gigabyte Ethernet cable out there, so which is highly redundant out there. And there's a dedicated team which reviews the capacity whenever something needs to be added. There's a dedicated team which monitors and keeps on adding the capacity as we grow our customer base out there, right? So just to summarize, we are present in say 50 plus countries today, 100 plus cities globally out there. That's a large network, right? Irrespective of wherever the end user is out there, we'll be able to accelerate the content using this large network out there, team, right? Yeah. So just to talk about some of our customers who've been leveraging edge services. So I think this has been bucketed into various segments out there. Irrespective of whichever the segment you fall into, you can leverage all of these services, right? I'm pretty sure you're able to relate to some of the large customers here whom you're already able to relate and talk about it, right? Why this has been bucketed here? Because a lot of times there's a perception in the market that CDN is only for the media content out there. It is not for financial customers or e-commerce customers or anything specific out there, right? So that is not true. CDN can be leveraged for any customers out there, right? Irrespective of whether you're dealing with static content or dynamic content, you should be able to leverage the CDN services out there, team, right? Yeah. So this is a quick snapshot of some of our reference customers who've been already leveraging our edge services out there, team, right? Yeah. Perfect. First thing first, we'll talk about caching. We'll go much more deeper now. So some of the features of our CloudFront out there, right? We'll talk about it in much more detail now. The first thing is static assets. So caching static assets is table stakes for any CDN out there, right? This is primarily you have the content which can be retrieved by multiple users. So you cache this content closer to the end user, and whenever a request comes in, you directly serve it out there, right? So what are the things to keep in mind out there, team? So which is very much important out there. So first and foremost, images and videos, that is pretty common. A lot of customers have been able to do this over a period of time, right? So now what has been changing? So this is one place where a lot of changes has been happening. So people have started using this for a lot of their websites as well, which largely looks at like HTML, JavaScripts, and CSS as well. And if you're delivering a lot of large documents or media files or anything of that sort, you can leverage there as well. The CDN, that is the CloudFront out there, that will help you to cache the content closer to the end user and then deliver it out as per the requirement out there, right? So now let's talk about how we are able to do that. In the first slide, we did see an architecture which is like multiple tiers out there. Now let's try to understand much more detail out there, right? The first layer, what we have when it comes to the CDN out there is called POPs, the points of presence, as I told earlier. So whenever the content is cached here, this has a persistent connection to your origins out there. The content expires, that is based on the TTLs you have defined it out there. It'll automatically make a request to your origin and fetches this content and then caches this content as per your requirement out there, team, right? So so it's a multi-tiered architecture. So usually this was our earlier approach. Whenever the cache used to expire, it used to go to the origin. That's where we brought in a multi-tiered architecture here. That means you have multiple components here. One is the POPs, and the second one is the regional edge cache, which has a larger cache width out there. So this way we'll be able to cater to wide variety of use cases because this has a larger cache width out there, team, right? And then over a period of time, we came up with something new called as Origin Shield as well. So here, what happens is typically you promote one of the RECs into origin shield. So this way, what happens is if you have global audience across the globe for your application out there, all of these requests, let's assume that all of these requests are dynamic and is going towards the origin. So eventually what happens is origin might not be able to scale out there, right? So this way to handle these kind of use cases out there. So that's where customers can promote one of the regional edge caches into origin shield. So this way, what happens is it consolidates the multiple requests into one request, and only a one request goes to your origin, right? So this way, your origin is not bombarded. At the same time, the end user experience is also not impacted, right? So this is the caching strategy we've been following here. There's been a lot of innovation. As you saw earlier, there was only classic POPs. Then came the regional edge caches. And now over a period of time, we also have the origin shield in their team, right? So that's a quick thing about the static content. Now let's go quickly to the dynamic content. So this is again a quick perception in the market. A lot of people believe CDN is only for static contents. No, CloudFront can be leveraged even for the dynamic content out there, team. So here is a real world example here. So let's assume a scenario here. We have a client and a server here, and say we are trying to request a particular object of 20 KB, and we are trying to download it here, right? So when you look at this diagram closely, as you're mostly aware, internet is network of networks, right? Primarily, as per the BGP protocol, each network pairs with another network out there, right? That means network A pairs with B and eventually C and D, right? One thing to notice here, whenever you request for a particular content, it doesn't always take an optimal path to your origin. That means it might go to A and it might go to B, again might come back to A and then go to C. It is not an optimal path out there. Because of this, there's a lot of latency has been introduced out there. So whenever you're leveraging CloudFront for such workloads, what happens here is, as I said earlier, the request comes to the closest pop possible out there. And from there to your origin, it completely leverages AWS global network out there. So this way, this is something which is completely managed by AWS. And this way, we have a persistent connections to your origin, which we can reuse it as well. So this way, we'll be able to provide better performance than the internet out there, right? Here is a quick reference for the same 20K object. It took roughly around 121 milliseconds here, versus via internet, it took roughly around 400 milliseconds, right? So we are able to reduce the latency very drastically here, even for the dynamic content team. So the key takeaway from the slide is CloudFront can be leveraged for both static content, which we looked at it earlier, and even for the dynamic content as well, right? This is largely due to our AWS backbone network, right? Yeah. Now, quickly moving on, this has been the first thing is the static content. The second we spoke about is the dynamic content. Now, let's talk about adaptive web delivery, right? So as you're aware, there have been a lot of devices coming into the market. So you need to ensure you're being able to provide right set of experiences, irrespective of whatever the device and location of it out there. So that is where we do have certain solutions in this space that is called adaptive web delivery. We'll talk about it in detail, right? So we do have both edge compute as well as edge storage at the CloudFront layer itself. That means if you are dealing with some of the use cases which you see on the left-hand side, we do have it covered for you. That means we do have certain solutions as Lambda at edge and CloudFront functions, which can run certain logic at the edge layer itself, right? That means whenever you wanted to run, say, URL redirect, or you want to do a redirection to a different origin altogether, you need not set up a different proxy server and this handling all these things out there, right? Now you can leverage our own edge compute solutions. One is the Lambda at edge, and the second one is the CloudFront functions itself. So we do have these solutions which offer the compute for you to run it out there. So at an edge location, that is at a POPs, we do have something called CloudFront functions. And similarly at an REC, which is a secondary tier of caching, that is regional edge cache, we do have Lambda at edge. Depending on the use cases, you can leverage one of these mechanisms to ensure you build all of these use cases out there, team. And with a new launch, that is new kit in the store, is the CloudFront key value store. This is a database at the edge layer. If you have any logics where you want to refer to a database and then run a compute, that is also feasible today, right? All of this, you're able to run it at closer to the end user itself. So this way, you're able to reduce a lot of latency and address your complex problems as well, team, right? Yeah. So here is a quick differences between Lambda at Edge and CloudFront function. I'll not go much more granular here, but on a high level, I'll be able to tell you if you have any workload where you want to run for a longer duration, if you wanted to run a logic for a longer duration, you can definitely look at Lambda at Edge. And if you have any workload which is very lightweight and you want to run it for each and every request out there, you should be able to look at CloudFront functions out there, team, right? Here are some of the use cases also clearly listed out there. So if you're looking at server-side rendering or stream manifest manipulation, anything of that sort, you can definitely look at Lambda at Edge, right? And then if you're looking at an URL rewriting or a redirects, that can be seamlessly handled with CloudFront functions out there, team, right? So these are the two variants of our compute which we offer at the edge layer out there, team. So if you have any questions regarding the same, feel free to put it into the chat and we'll try to address as we make progress, team, right? Yeah. So here are a couple of examples how customers have been leveraging these edge compute out there, right? So first thing is this. Let's assume there's been a user who has a network fluctuation. That means he's been switching some, say, let's assume from 5G to a 2G or something of that sort. How do we ensure we do not impact, say, whenever he's been switching between the networks, his performance shouldn't be impacted out there, right? So how are we able to handle that? So we are being able to look at this header called data save header. If you are able to identify it, so we can route that particular user to a much more optimized origin. So this way is performance is not at all impacted out there. So you can leverage edge functions here to look at this particular header. And if the header is on, we can probably redirect him to a much more optimized origin out there, right? So that is one. Second is the CORS, right? I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of what is CORS, right? Cross-origin resource sharing. So whenever you're trying to access the content on a particular other domains out there, you need to send a pre-flight request out there. So usually this increases a particular, because there's a network call which you have to make, and this introduces certain latency out there. So we can also leverage edge compute here to even reduce your send a pre-flight request itself out there, team. So if you have a list of domains where you have to send a pre-flight request, we can store that into a database at edge layer and then send a pre-flight request as well as per your requirement out there, team. So that is also one of the use cases. And then the crawlers, right? This is one thing a lot of customers are looking at it. SEO out there, right? So most of the customers want their websites to be SEO friendly out there. So how do we achieve that? There's also a mechanism out there where you can seamlessly integrate with WAF, that is our web application firewall solution, to identify a set of bots. And once you're able to identify a SEO bot, you can route the traffic to a much more optimized origin. So this way, your SEO score is not impacted out there, team. So if you have any use cases around this, do let us know, and we are be happy to do a deep dive around it, right? And yeah, that's about the adaptive web delivery. Coming to the last part of the solution, that is security, right? Which is like need of the hour, right? Talking about security, what are the security features does when you leverage cloud services, sorry, when you leverage edge services, what are the security benefits we do get out there, right? So the first and foremost, when it comes to the infrastructure security, you can seamlessly integrate with Shield Advance out there. Shield is our managed DDoS service out there. If you're leveraging CloudFront, it can seamlessly integrate with CloudFront out there, right? And that will help you to protect against any DDoS vectors. It can be layer 7, that is your application layer, or layer 3 and layer 4, which is like your network layer, as well as a transport layer out there, right? And it also has certain built-in features, which will help you to cater to something like SYN proxy attacks, or even the slow loris attacks, right? CloudFront has that capability to tackle this by default out there, right? And similarly, when it comes to application security, that is your layer 7 security, it can integrate with AWS WAF out there. With WAF, you can have various rule sets depending on if you're looking at rate limiting, or if you're looking at OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, or if you're looking at primarily like bot control or a fraud control. All of these capabilities are available within the WAF out there. And CloudFront can seamlessly integrate with WAF. And depending on the use case, you can enable any of these features so that you can take care of the application security as well, team, right? And then coming to the secure connections, as most of you are aware, AWS has something called Amazon Certificate Manager. It can integrate with ACM as well. If you're looking for any public certificates, ACM is a solution for you. It offers free of cost certificates for you. So this way, you'll be able to even make your solutions much more secure by running it on HTTPS out there, right? So we offer free certificates, and we also offer features like OSCP stapling, which will ensure security is being taken care out there, right? And then whenever you're trying to say securely send the content to the end user, that is where we do have solutions like origin access control. This way, only CloudFront will be able to speak to your origin. No other resource will be able to speak to it. So we do have something called origin access control and origin access identity. So this way, CloudFront becomes a single door of entry to your application out there. And then whenever you're trying to serve private content to your end users, we do have signed cookies and signed URLs as well. And customers have been largely leveraging custom authorization as well, with using edge compute out there team. So that is also something which you can definitely look at, right? So if you have more questions or any inquiries regarding the thing, feel free to reach us out on that team, right? Yeah.
Praveen, this is Anand here. I have I received two questions from the audience here,
Yeah.
and I would just want to call it out for everybody. The first question that is coming is it says about WAF integration. How does a web application firewall WAF works in conjunction with CDN to enhance security?
Yeah.
And second question is actually a deep dive and follow-up of that question that how does CloudFront offer encryption, access control, DDoS protection, and comply with the industry standards to ensure data security?
Perfect. Thanks, Anand. I think answers to both the question is in the same slide. I'll probably explain it to
Yep.
you, right? So as I said earlier, whenever there's a legitimate traffic or a malicious traffic which is coming to the edge location out there, in the same host itself, we do have WAF and Shield. WAF is for the layer 7 security. This is where you deploy various rules. As I said earlier, this can be your OS top 10 vulnerabilities, and say something like recently there was log4j vulnerability, right? A lot of applications which were running on Apache got impacted, so you wanted to identify those and those mitigated. So for you to identify some application vulnerabilities and then deploy rules out there, that is where AWS WAF comes into the picture, right? With WAF you can have wide variety of rules. One is like application vulnerabilities. Second is rate limiting rules. At times your origins might be sensitive. It might not be able to take a lot of load, right? At those kind of use cases, you want to have rate limiting in place. And then some of the use cases, you might be receiving a lot of bot traffic as well, correct? Because of this, bots can do a lot of things, right? It can result in fraudulent activities as well. So you want to control the traffic coming from the bots as well, right? So today, AWS WAF has all of these capabilities out there, right? And it can do a seamless integration. There's a single click deployment. All you have to go to whenever you're creating a CloudFront distribution, with a single click, you can even deploy a WAF configuration team. All right. I'll show that in the next console, but the integration is seamless. Whenever you're trying to update your configuration for a CloudFront distribution or trying to create itself, in the same console itself, with a single button, you should be able to add a protection for the layer 7 out there, right? And similarly for DDoS, when it comes to that, is our offering has been Shield Advanced out there. So Shield Advanced monitors every packet which is entering our network. Whenever we identify certain DDoS signatures, we then and there drop it as well, right? And all of these services are present in the same host, that is the edge location, whatever we are talking about out there, right? That is the POP. Both our WAF and Shield are there itself. So this way, as soon as the traffic comes in, if it's a malicious traffic, it gets dropped then and there. If it's a DDoS, Shield takes care of it. If it is a application vulnerability out there and you're been deploying certain rules of it, WAF can seamlessly take care of it. And only a genuine traffic will go back to your origins. That is your region which you have deployed. It can be multiple regions, or it can go back to your on-premises as well, team. So this way, we not only accelerate the content and provide better performance, we also provide a better security, right? So since we are able to identify the malicious traffic closer to the end user itself, this will have no impact on your origins out there, right? A lot of cases, what happens is they would have firewalls deployed on that particular, region out there. All the traffic will go to that particular endpoint. And then eventually, if there's a huge influx, the chances of that entire resource going down, and this will impact the entire application itself, right? So that is where if you can leverage WAF and Shield, this will help you to filter out the malicious traffic closer to the end user so that your origin is least impacted out there, right? Hope I was able to answer your questions, right? Quickly moving on, this is where the single click deployment I spoke about, right? Whenever you're going through the primarily through the CloudFront configuration itself, then and there you have something called single click deployment. As soon as you click on this, you should be able to integrate with the WAF seamlessly out there. Once you're able to do that, we also provide rich set of analytics, primarily what sort of traffic you've been receiving, is it coming from various geographies, who are the top IP contributors. All of this data will be available to you from the single console itself. Which all geographies is the traffic coming from, which is the most accessed URIs out there, which are the top countries you're catering to, which are the most URI paths. All of this data is readily available in the console itself out there, right? And same applies to the security as well. How many requests did it come? How many requests did it got blocked? How many were allowed? All of this data is being available in the single dashboard out there, team, right? Yeah. That's it from my side. If you have any questions, feel free to put it into the chat, and we'll be able to address as we make progress. Right?
Sure, sure.
Over to you, Anand.
Yep. So now I have another question, which is maybe you could say my question.
Yeah.
I know you answered the questions which came from the audience, which was mostly around DDoS and WAF and then integration. But then, is there any primary security threat, which do you think, CDN aims to mitigate while, the adoption? Anything that you want to highlight to people that they should keep that in mind when somebody wants to adopt or somebody wants to switch to AWS content delivery network, vis-a-vis wherever they are today, let's say to any of the competition.
Absolutely. A right question as well, Anand. So whenever you're leveraging services like CDN, it has out of the box capabilities. Let's assume that you only cater to specific geographies and you do not intend traffic coming from other geographies out there, right? CDN itself, that a CloudFront itself has a feature called geography blocking. So if you do not cater to certain geographies, you can then and there block this traffic from those geographies itself out there, right? So that is one. And then you can integrate with WAF and Shield, which has quite a lot of managed rules. A lot of times it becomes very tricky for a customer who is coming onto a new platform, right? So that is where we do have something called AWS managed rule sets. So this makes it is much more easier to adopt, right? So if you're looking at OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, there's a specific rule for you. So if you're looking for certain application vulnerabilities like Log4j or Java deserialization, there's a separate rule group. So all of these rule groups are managed for you. So this way, you need not do the heavy lifting. All you have to do is enable based on your application stack. Whether am I running a Windows application, say I'm running it on a Windows operating system or a Linux operating system, and then select the rules accordingly. So this way, your security part is done much more seamlessly out there.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Yep, thank you, Praveen, for that information. Okay, so now we move on to the next a quick segment that we have. We have a poll upcoming now, and I would request my team to please post that poll here so that we can take that forward. I hope everybody is able to see a quick pop-up window which may have come here. What is the primary reason your organization uses a CDN? We are banned from voting, so I would expect audience to please participate and help us. Improving the website, security, reducing server load. all of these, or I'm not using at all. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a pretty mixed response. And
Yep. So yeah, what I see here is that definitely it's interesting, and when data is in front of you, of course, it talks, and I see that 47% people are of the participants are using for some or the other reason, and 20% are not. So that's a great poll, I would say, and it's a good understanding in terms of how important is CDN today, and possibly people who are looking for adoption as well. That's a good chunk out there. And in the 47% mass that we have on this call, I believe that there is a lot to do with those audience here. I have some surprise which I will come at the end. Some takeaways from today's session. Something to do around CDN itself, and that will definitely help them, even if they are existing user, and if they want to switch, if they want to improvise, if they're already on AWS, still there is a provision out there. So that's I will bring it up in some time. Moving on from here, there are a few scenarios which I have been receiving the question from the audience here, and I would just paste it here, for the host and the presenters to kind of help us with that. So allow me a moment. This says about user in a specific region report slow page load time. That's a very common thing which may be observing on a day to day. How we would use a CDN to identify and resolve this issue.
Praveen, do you want to take that?
Absolutely, right.
Remember, this is not a general statement. This is subject to specific region. I'm not sure from which region the person who's asked that, but yeah, definitely it is important.
Absolutely, right. So let's assume you're running a global organization, and you have been hosting your infrastructure in one particular region, right? Let's, for the simplicity purpose itself, let's assume Mumbai is your geography, right? We do have two regions in India, Hyderabad and Mumbai. Let's assume you've been deploying this in Hyderabad today or a Mumbai today, right? And let's assume there's a user who's based out of US. It can be like North Virginia, let's assume here. And when he tries to access this application, when he tries to access this application, there'll be a lot of time, right? Because your application is hosted in Mumbai and you're based out of North Virginia. It has to come over a period, like it has to come through a series of network and then land it here, right? How do we address that requirement? So that is where CDN, that is CloudFront, comes into the picture. So if you have certain static content, you can cache it closer to the end user. This way, when he tries to request for a content, let's assume you are dealing with an OTT platform. There's a lot of cacheable content, right? There are images, there are videos, all of these things. So that's where whenever he tries to access, the video is being placed because which is being cached closer to the end user. So this way, there's no buffering time and the start time is much more quicker. And same applies to other domains as well, right? If you're dealing with e-commerce, you have such a huge catalog of images, and whenever user goes onto the platform, he doesn't want to have that page loading, keep on loading, right? You cache these content closer to the end user, and then whenever you're dealing with an API traffic, that is where I spoke during the slides, right? You can leverage CloudFront, which in turn leverages AWS backbone network to accelerate both static as well as a dynamic content out there, right? So this way you can improve the end user performance, right? End user performance whenever he's trying to browse from different geographies out there, team, right? So that's how you try to handle this.
Okay. Thank you, Praveen. I have a follow-up question coming here, which is very interesting, and again that talks about the efficiency of the delivery network from AWS, and that's from somebody who I think belongs from the medical, I think maybe transcription or some kind of background, which says about how do we ensure efficient delivery of medical data, including patient's record and diagnostic imaging, maybe MRI, CT scan, or something like that. I think because they are all heavy imaging, right? So how AWS CDN ensures the efficient delivery of these kind of records?
Got it. Yeah, answer to that is this is also tricky, right? Whenever you're into various domains as a customer, you might be looking at various certifications as well, right? It can be PCI at times, it can be SOC, it can be HIPAA compliance as the requirement from Anand, right? So CloudFront has validation for all of these programs out there, various compliance programs as well. This includes SOC, this includes PCI. This includes HIPAA as well. If there are any other programs you are subject to bind it to, keep us posted. And we do have all the solutions out there, right? As you saw in the slides, CloudFront has been largely leveraged by various customers, right, across various domains. There are fintechs, there are media customers, there are e-commerce customers, there are startups who've been leveraging CloudFront out there, right? If you have certain regulations around it, CloudFront, just to update you, CloudFront has all the necessary compliance certifications out there. If something which is not able to fill in, keep us posted. We'll be happy to help. We can work with that respective vendor and get that done as well, team. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Just to add
Yeah,
to that, I think the question is more on the image and the video side, right?
yeah.
If we are talking about the image delivery, we need to optimize images, right? And then with CloudFront, if you look at our edge compute services like Lambda at Edge and CloudFront Function, using these edge computing services, we can optimize the images on the fly and then we can deliver it to the end consumers. Resizing of the image is really important because these are heavy data, right? The high resolution videos, high resolution images. So you need to optimize it using image optimization solutions. This is one thing. I mean, people can use our edge compute services, but then we have a good partner ecosystem, right? We have good partner ecosystem. CK Cloud Kinetics has done that on multiple cases, right? We have done the implementation of image optimization solutions, but then we have professional image optimization solutions in the marketplace like ImageKit and Cloudinary. So we can actually work with these partners in case if somebody want to have a managed solution, or you can actually use help from our partners to develop and integrate those solutions to optimize the images.
Right, that's an interesting point, Anappa. Thank you so much. I was not aware about it, or to be honest, let me admit that. When you said that, the optimization and resizing is required, I was actually processing that maybe the end customer has to do that. But then when you spoke about the automated solutions that we can integrate, that's like job
Yeah.
done easier. And of course, we can play a very important role here along with AWS to give the right consulting approach, and of course integrating to that, or maybe adopting to the AWS cloud. Thank you so much for that. Now I don't see any questions coming in here, so I will move on to the last but most important exciting part here. Just allow me a second. I will rather share my screen and bring that up. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible here for everybody.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, cool. So now this is the last, and after that, we can wind it up. So while Annappa and Praveen, you guided us and the audience here how we work around with CDN adoption, migration, integration with different services, and the use case every customer may have, with respect to their own environment and type of industry and the work that they do. Of course, everybody wants to explore, before they adopt how this will work and how things will go for them, because every environment and every business is different, and that's where we come handy along with AWS team to support with a complimentary or a sponsored POC or a POV, what we call, right? So for that, definitely we will have to understand the specific, business use case, and then accordingly we can tailor-made the POC program. So that for that, definitely we will reach out. We will have a follow-up discussion. We might do a quick 20, 30-minute discovery call to understand and get it aligned. So that's one thing. Second is that, as Cloud Kinetics, I want to again highlight and bring up to the notice of everybody here from the audience that we are a premier partner, and we also happen to be one of the CDN reseller for AWS globally. So that what makes it more exciting, because the price that you would see, the list price, you can of course get a subsidized, discounted price, or you can say a private pricing offer if you want to, get into a through marketplace if you want to purchase if you're already a AWS customer. All that can be possible, using a partnership through Cloud Kinetics. So that's a very, very important point, because every dollar saved is going to be invested in your business. So please reach out to us. We will also reach out to you, no doubt about it. But ensure that, even if you're using a CDN today, you may not have a private pricing. We can always explore that. We can look at the volume, we can look at the consumption, we can look at the specific use case, and we can work out on a subsidized pricing, right? And the last and the most important, migration and integration support, right? So that's very, very important. If you're looking to migrate and adopt AWS CDN services and integrate to for your content delivery uh, platform, please give a ring to us. We will connect you back, and we can again have a discussion around that. And that will, of course, we will follow up our discussion, and we can take that stretch after the initial POC or POV is done. But yeah, that's one thing that is here at your disposal. So that's it from us, from Cloud Kinetics and AWS in this today's session. If there are any questions, and if there are any input that anybody has, I would please request to jot it down in the chat here, or you can, we can take a follow up from once we connect back. Okay, I see there are one more question coming up here. Somebody says, I'm already using a CDN. How can CloudFront help me? What are the different caching strategies available in CDN?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And if you look at your poll also, right, there are two kind of responses. One is basically nobody is actually trying to use CloudFront for security. And then the other customers who have not even started using CDN, right? And the answer of all these questions is basically there's a perception that people believe CloudFront or any CDN is just for delivering static content, and hence they are not using it. So I think for those customers, it's really important to use CloudFront for delivering the dynamic traffic. Praveen has highlighted that even for delivering dynamic traffic, it really makes sense to use CloudFront and improve the performance. Secondly, for multi-CDN, if somebody is using any CDN and they want to understand what is the benefit, then I would say that CDN provides you the reach and depth, right? The kind of a ecosystem we have. I mean, we have over 700 POP locations, and then we are adding embedded POPs 900 plus. So we have huge infrastructure actually, and we are very, very close to the customer. So you will have better performance. And then, of course, it is if you are already running your workload on AWS, it's easy to integrate and optimize the cost. It gives you that advantage. So it's always better to go for multi-CDN if you're already using third-party CDN along with AWS infrastructure.
So that's another follow-up question which has just come, Annappa. I think people are getting more excited at the end now. Uh, that says about optimization. What is the technique to optimize the CDN performance? I think that's a very exciting question, and I know, I mean, we are there to help, but if there are any outlook that you want to share with the audience.
Yeah, I think maybe Praveen, you can talk about it, and then I can. Yeah.
Annappa rightly pointed out earlier as well. It is very important to identify a right set of device and then serve the content which is much more optimized based on the device. Now you look at it, there are a wide variety of devices, right? There are mobile devices, there are tablets, there are televisions, wide variety of devices. So if you're serving the same image across all of these devices, it might not be optimal, right? And the image might be much more larger as well. So that is where you look at, say, with the help of certain headers, you identify whether the viewer, the request is coming from as a mobile device or a desktop device. According to that, you customize your image, you compress the image based on the resolution of that particular device, and then go ahead and send that, right? So that is something which a lot of our customers have been doing. So this way, what happens is it provides a better.
Are you referring to responsiveness based on the type of the device that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Right? Depending on whether it's a mobile viewer or a desktop viewer,
Right, right.
it is, right? You identify that and then serve an image based on that particular device type. So this way, what
Yep.
happens is, one is user experience is great. Second, you've been able to compress that image as well, right? Say primarily based on the height and width of the image, you'll be able to compress it on a fly and then send it to the end user out there. So smaller the image, it'll be loading much more faster, and the resolution, absolutely,
Hmm.
right? That is one way.
The resolution doesn't get affected. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the second is primarily around having different TTLs, right? Time to live. Say how long a content has to be there out there, right? So we have wide variety of customers. If your content is not at all changing, you can cache it to a longest duration. If you frequently bring up the new content out there, this is very common with e-commerce websites, right? Because they keep on adding new products to a catalog and they try to keep on removing the content as well. So if you have such use cases, always play around with the TTL, that is time to live. So this defines that how long a content has to be cached in a particular CloudFront.
Hmm.
This is also one way, and you can do this based on different categories as well. Images, videos can have something else. JavaScript, HTML can have something else. And we do also have customers of caching dynamic API responses as well, right? So that is also doable. If you have use cases you want it where you want to cache API responses for a short interval of time, CloudFront, you can leverage CloudFront for that as well, right?
Those can be timed, basically. That's what
Absolutely.
you mean to say, right? Yeah.
You have a such control with CloudFront,
Yeah.
you can do this.
Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, Praveen. That was a great answer. I just want to take one last question. I know we still have 1 or 2 minutes, but that's the last question probably. How does edge computing complement CDN? That's a question from that's the last question. And how is it potentially beneficial for the organization? Is there a complementing story between edge computing and CDN?
Yeah, I think I've spoken about the image optimization. Praveen, do you want to highlight some of the other use cases of edge computing along with the CloudFront? You're on mute, Praveen.
Sorry, Annappa, I lost it. Can you please iterate?
Yeah, so on the edge computing, the question is actually how it can actually work with CloudFront and
Yeah.
give benefit to the customers. Yeah.
One use case is image optimization, as we spoke, right? Other use cases can be redirects. A lot of times you get a request from one particular URI and you want to send it to a different URI. That can be done. Another popular use case is like visitor setting, right? You might have,
Hmm.
say, you might have a mixed audience where certain audiences have subscribed, paying a premium to you, and there are certain audience or like free users onto a platform, right? In these kind of a scenarios, you can have a visitor room setup itself. So if there's a premium user, subscribed user is coming onto a platform, you can route him to a different origin. If there's a user who is a free user who's coming onto the platform for the first time, you want to send him to a different origin, you should be able to do it, right? The use cases are plenty out there. The commonest I can think of is visitor prioritization, depending on whether is a premium user or a genuine user. And then we spoke about, say, network path out there, right? Primarily, uh, say if a particular user has certain bandwidth constraints, that means he doesn't have a great network. You identify that network and then send him to a different origin, which is much more optimized. This way, it can load much more faster out there, right? That is also some of the use cases, right? And then the
Right.
bot, the crawlers, the SEO bot, which I spoke about, right? That's a
Yeah.
popular use case because a lot of organizations want to identify the SEO bots and then ensure they improve their SEO score out there, right? So it is important to identify the bot. Once you're able to identify it, you can route it to a much more optimized bot. So this way, your
Right.
search engine optimization score doesn't hamper, right? So there are a wide variety of use cases for this team. Yeah.
Cool. So I think these are also the point where somebody can pick the early ways to engage and probably look at the proof of value, right, around these respective use cases that they might have. So that gives another chance, for all of us to kind of re-engage and see how these respective use cases can be explored, and we can have a one-on-one discussion on that to pick up the conversation from there. Cool. Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks all of you. Thank you, Annappa. Thank you, Mayank, Praveen, and my backend team to support out with this interesting webinar that we had around CDN today. And we look forward to reconnect with all of you, whoever have been able to join today, and also who registered but could not turn up today. We will definitely reach out to all of us, and then we'll figure out the forward way looking how we take the conversation forward. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks. You have a nice evening. Thanks. Signing off. Thanks. Bye.